In the last episode, to escape King Cold's wrath, CUI had to resort to living as a peaceful being on Earth. It quickly became apparent, though, that he wouldn't be able to last long without finding a job. So, it turns out that a desk job seems to be a popular place of work amongst Earthlings, so do that. Our alien friend has decided to start a life as a salaryman, as any use of brutal force on the locals would alert those pesky Dragon Team members and their Namekian friend. His attention was brought towards the likes of Lucky Foods, a company with an office branch promising to review even the most ridiculous application. As a refugee running from King Cole's retaliation after desertion, he could hope for help from Earth, Sanctuary even, as long as he wanted to maintain a good image. He was keeping his distance though from all of the Namekians. He didn't want to be recognized as someone who personally took part in the pacification of their villages, even though he was pretty sure that most of them were brought back to life and they may not remember him anyway. He was able to acquire a business suit, which was apparently necessary during a work interview.
What? You mean I can't just wear my armor? It's smart, we wear it all the time. Okay.
He had to admit that it was all easier in space. You didn't have a dress code. I mean, so long as you wore clothes. Except for that one guy, though. He got away with a little time. He didn't like talking about him. But yes, I mean, the job was a lot easier. They came for your planet, and if you were good enough, you were employed by them. If not, bye-bye. And although this option had its pros, less dying, CUI himself had to stop himself from blowing some of those unbearable locals and work colleagues up. He valued his own life, though, way too much to give in to his temptations, though.
So, why would you want to work for us?
Asked the interviewer.
Because you said accept all applications, I guess.
The man fixed his glasses, looking at the alien. CUI had to admit, though, even he could take down this individual with his eyes closed. He was still super stressed about the whole thing, though, like he was facing his biggest adversary.
Not in your prior work experiences.
I was part of the Galactic Emperor Lord Frieza's invasion force. I mostly conquered planets for him. Did some odd jobs like, hunting dissidents, he answered.
I see.
I'm sorry?
Yes?
Asked the man.
It's just I thought you would be more surprised at my answer.
My good sir, we live in 8763. Lucky Foods is more than ready to keep up with the times, and we do want to be inclusive for potential extraterrestrial candidates. I mean, we wouldn't want to get cancelled now, would we? I mean, you coming around was just the perfect ticket for our social media presence.
Oh. All right.
What are your strengths?
Asked the interviewer.
I guess I can work under pressure. I can be a team player if motivated properly, and I'm pretty confident in my decisions.
I see. What about your weaknesses?
We didn't like this question. He rarely had any introspective thoughts.
If I have to say, I guess I tend to be a little too overconfident, and I tend to be brutally honest with people.
The interviewer nodded and then began to think for a moment.
All right, Mr. CUI. We'll call you back, and I'll show your applications to the higher-ups.
Wait, call me back? What does that mean?
But before CUI could get his answer, he was already on the other side of the door. His older self would have just blasted them away with a key attack for their dissidence. But he couldn't be his old self ever again. That could never be. How frustrating. He was considering returning to the Cold Force, just leaving the planet when they weren't looking and go back to Mama. After all, surely no one would have known that he'd deserted. He could always say that he was merely spying on the Earthlings to make sure that they were kept on their toes. Still, if the Super Saiyan was still at large out there, he could maybe overthrow the monarchy as well if it had been destroyed. But that sounded like effort, though. And between all of the conflict that he had endured, the insane power of the Namekians, the Saiyans, and even Vegeta now, who was able to outclass him so quickly, CUI suddenly felt very, very horribly insignificant. But he was still a survivalist. Oh yes. He and a couple of others were elevated by Frieza by being spared from the destruction of their homeworld. He had gotten lucky, and he intended to make the most of it. Although, had all of that been such a good thing? Really? CUI did enjoy his fair share of pillaging and destruction, of course, but it had just occurred to him that if he was just a tiny bit weaker than he actually was, he might have ended up with a less glamorous job. or dead. Damn it, no wonder everyone got so soft on this planet. These thoughts were intruding him. They had way too much time to think. He suddenly realized that his kinsman, Gonma, and the others might have perished during the Namek invasion. How many were left now, he thought. He knew that his family had been elevated and highly regarded in the social status of their empire, but what did it matter now? Frieza, who seemed indestructible, had been destroyed. And for CUI, that kind of broke his fighting spirit. No one was safe. And he hated to admit this, but this might be the reason why he had sought safety on Earth. As he began to eat some of their weird food, he was called on that primitive communication device that the Earthlings had given him. It was far less elegant than a scouter.
Yes? Mr. CUI, was it? We'd like to congratulate you, as your work application has been accepted. You will start tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. We will begin with some basic training, and you will be supervised by Mr. Derlikatesen. Please don't be late.
All right, that had been easier than it looked. What wasn't that easy, though, was that damn clock and time based on a 24-hour day. I mean, who invented that? Well, luckily, he had some sort of an alarm device that would surely wake him up on time. Right? Indeed, said device worked, and it was so loud and irritating that it could bring back his entire species from the dead. He also discovered that this weird dry square pastry tasted better cooked in the weird contraption that launched it into the air. That's a toaster, by the way. Also, that sweet fruit-like substance did wonders when put on the thing. That's jam, by the way. He put on his suit and decided to make a mad dash towards the offices of Lucky Foods. I mean, he would have done until he remembered that he could fly. CUI managed to get there on time, despite that, greatly impressing Del, his new boss. Del was a short, rotund man with large glasses and a very impressive-looking moustache. He seemed genuinely excited about having an alien on his team, ooh. But most of the training was pretty basic, including boring safety precautions and etiquette in the workplace, which was a little too stiff for CUI's liking. They were then in the office division of Lucky Foods, which meant that they did all the paperwork for the food company. CUI had to learn about Earth cuisine, which took an entire month to get his head around. But still, he did pick it up quite quickly in comparison to some of the other co-workers, and they brought him more food to try, and it actually wasn't half bad. Out of his entire team, CUI learned to accept 2 humans as his work colleagues that he kinda liked. One of them was a stir, a man who seemed intimidated by his attitude, which quickly turned him into CUI's lackey. The other one was an adorable lady named Blanche. She was quite the opposite, not scared of him at all, which had awoken certain emotions in CUI that he hadn't been quite ready to process. Very quickly, the employees of Lucky Foods learned that their new co-worker was better utilized in company negotiations. As he went on more business trips with others, they quickly figured out that his menacing looks greatly aided the process of getting the company what it wanted. Quickly, CUI became a rather smooth-talking individual, and all that office knowledge and food lore started to genuinely interest him. He quickly realized that all that corporation hiffle was a perfect place for someone like him, who had built his entire life on backstabbing his rivals and upending their efforts, undermining them. In a way, all of this at Lucky Foods was quite similar and less risky, and he could still gain influence and power, and after just another couple of months, he quickly became Mr. Ikatesen's assistant. Del himself was promoted to a regional manager by the higher-ups, and he took CUI and his entourage with him. The alien used this time to get some free time with his new buddies as well. He enjoyed their company, actually. It was a little bit like with the Freeza Force, just less bloody. But they could have some fun after work at least, hitting some bars and watching Earth movies. Some of them were quite funny, actually. And although Blanche explained to CUI that laughing loudly when watching sci-fi horror in a cinema wasn't widely expected or accepted.
Oh, sorry, I thought this sci-fi horror was a comedy.
CUI shrugged. In a way, he had become quite comfortable on Earth, and unlike most of the Saiyans in our what-ifs, he didn't hate it. He wasn't a member of an innate warrior-like species, he just happened to be good, but this was like stealing candy from a child, except it was socially acceptable. Getting better contracts from other companies, negotiating better cars for their delivery service. Thanks to CUI, Lucky Foods was growing in power at an incredible rate, and it ousted many of the smaller companies in their field. There was one instance when an angry blonde woman was trying to take down the office for apparently trying to bring her business down. But CUI managed to sweet talk her out of it. As he could empathize with her aggressive nature, he quickly suggested to his boss that they maybe buy out her company. Apparently, She was some sort of hotshot before she started the whole food transport business, a little bit of a maverick, which she could relate to, telling her stories about his mercenary life. They actually ended up in a mutual friendship.
And miss, if there is a bank you want to rob, count me in. I haven't had any fun in a while.
Yeah, sure thing, Bob. This residual cash you got me is almost too easy. I hope you ain't pulling my leg or trying to be holding out for the cops, or else I'm gonna kick your ass. This made Qui's day, sort of. There were more situations like this to be had, as sometimes he had to go somewhere personally, as in the case of thieves trying to steal one of their delivery trucks. The alien had to politely show them that stealing from Lucky Foods was not the smartest idea to be had, and in less than a year, they became one of the most successful transport companies in the region, largely thanks to Qui's more direct approach. He was soon offered the position of manager, with his former boss being elevated even further to the rank of a board member. This allowed him to get himself a bigger house and an actual social status within West City. However, some things were meant to last, as one day, he was visited by an old acquaintance. He didn't know how he had managed to find his house and figured out that it was him with the clothes that he'd been wearing. The only thing Qui did know was that it wasn't the person that he wanted to see.
Vegeta! Nice shirt.
Oh, when Kakarot's brat told me that there was another spaceman on Earth and mentioned your name, I couldn't believe my ears. That's just precious. You and your little snack party. Tell me, Qui, give me one reason why I shouldn't blow your head off at the sight of you.
Because we're grown-as people, and hey, technically I saved your life on Namek.
Oh, that's true, but that was extremely self-serving. Which is why we're even talking in the first place and why I haven't blown your head off at the sight of you.
Listen, Vegeta, I'm sorry for what has occurred. I can even get you a nice home here on Earth if you want. I'm actually reasonably wealthy right now. Let's make bygones be bygones, yeah?
Bygones be bygones, eh? Unfortunately for you, Qui, I don't function that way.
As Vegeta stepped toward him with a wicked grin, Qui stood in a defensive position.
You're making this way less fun than it should.
Wait. Vegeta's eyes widened. Can you feel it?
Feel what?
The prince looked shocked.
Frieza! Frieza is alive and coming here! I can feel him. Him and his father.
Qui's purple paled into a cyanose-like tint.
Stop torturing me, Vegeta, and tell me what you want! No, you idiot, I'm serious! Come, we need to talk to those fools. We have to contact Kakarot!
What?
As Vegeta dragged Qui by his expensive suit, he was forcefully taken to witness the landing of Frieza's ship. And what was equally terrifying is that indeed, the guy his former boss was alive with cybernetics and everything. Oh no, this was a mistake. Coming here was a mistake. Oh my god. And now Frieza was going to kill them all. Great. But then things quickly changed thanks to the intervention of a certain young man with a sword, who also turned out to be a Super Saiyan. In the meantime, Qui had managed to learn that Kakarot was the traditional Saiyan name for Son Goku, the man who had originally defeated Frieza, and the father of that nerdy kid who had aided him here on Earth. And yeah, the boy with the sword swiftly dealt with both Frieza and Cold. Phew, this time Qui could witness the whole thing with his own eyes. Yep, he felt even more insignificant, especially when Son Goku arrived on Earth, trying to warn them all about the invasion even though it already happened. Then they had some sort of sparring thing, the two Super Saiyans. That was a whole other level. And then they learned about the revelation related to the boy coming from the future and androids. Piccolo approached him, seeing how deeply confused he was.
So, are you gonna join us in training? I heard that you're decently strong, and despite my initial objections, you haven't caused too much trouble. I mean, you have, but corporations are our specialty. Now with Goku back, we'll probably be trying to prepare for those androids.
Where's Vegeta?
Qui deflected the question.
Probably motivated to train even more to beat Goku. He's obsessed about it.
Well, I hope he's obsessed enough to forget about me. You know what? No, I'm fine. You've got this. You lot seem capable. It's too much of a power gap now anyway. I'm fine where I am. If you people need food delivered though, I'm your guy. But fighting, I think I've done my fair share, so, excuse me.
And Qui left the dumbfounded Namekian. After all, he was a pragmatic being, and the only opponents he wanted to deal with right now were his competitors in the field. Between the Namekians, Frieza, the androids, and Super Saiyans, yeah, Qui said, I think I'll skip this one. And that's where we end things. If you like the idea of Salaryman Qui and a different approach to a character ending their evil career, make sure to vote for this story at the end of the month. One of the 4 April Fool's stories will be continued and expanded upon based upon your votes.